Welcome to another video, which I wanted to upload on the weekend already, but things came in between, I'm sorry. Nonetheless, the Dark Knight has made quite a good first impression when I started in Endwalker, mostly evoking a super familiar feel to the job compared to its Shadowbringers version. So if you already liked or loved the Dark Knight when it had been the poster boy in the previous expansion, you will not be disappointed now. Except if you expected something more coming in Endwalker. Yes, the new Shadowbringer attack is nice and such, but it really doesn't feel like being an integrated part of our rotation or battle mechanics. It's cool and powerful, and probably that skill, granting the Dark Knight the slight edge in DPS compared to its competition, but it is kinda sad to see it not being integrated into the blood gauge or bound to a certain amount of blood spiller or quietus uses. For example, like you would use these 3 or 4 times to receive a proc of Shadowbringer, that then could be used to weave in this powerful OGCD attack. Or maybe during Living Shadow you can use it 2 times like the summoner uses Agmorn or Death Flare, while the Living Shadow would follow your attacks on that regard. I don't know, or even when the Blackest Night is being used successfully, maybe then you should get a stack for Shadowbringer instead of a free edge or Flood of Shadow proc, maybe. Which would also lead to using TBN properly being a DPS gain on top of your usual defensive boost. However, when talking about the Blackest Night, this is still a super cool tool in my opinion, and even though Xeno still hates the many downsides and disadvantages it may offer against the competition especially, and I agree with him that it seems a bit underwhelming compared to Bloodwedding or Heart of Corundum. Yet it does everything it ever did, and still, the small cooldown of 15 seconds is what makes me stick with my love to this ability. It is definitely noticeable when you're able to use this 2 or even 3 times when pulling big packs of mobs that still hit very hard on the MSQ dungeon, for example, when your gear's down sync slightly. And here in particular, I don't feel like the Dark Knight lacks defensive tools compared to the other tanks. I've seen many gunbreakers dying to big pulls and I've never died with my Dark Knight yet. Yes, of course, you have to time your Abyssal Drain keenly to help the healer when their healing, especially their boost healing kit, has been depleted. But when speaking of Abyssal Drain, I really dislike the change that it shares its cooldown with Cough and Spit now. I really don't know why this seems to serve as a DPS counterweight alone, because it doesn't serve any other function. Button bloat? No, we still have 2 separate buttons. Less stuff to click than before? Nope, we even got more through Shadowbringer. I just don't really get it on that one. Maybe a very minimal skill requirement to make misclicks for Dark Knight players that are still used to old setups more punishing? Maybe you guys have a better idea about this change and why we're stuck with this. But long story short, the elephant in the room, why is Delirium awesome now and why is Blood Weapon still so difficult to time properly? In all honesty, I actually don't know which system I like more. Yes, I agree that the stack system for Delirium is way cleaner, but as timing had always been a core principle on the Dark Knight, I might actually favor the old version of it, especially due to the fact that Blood Weapon is sticking to this core principle. However, I really want Square to decide for one of these alternatives at least, other than this amalgamation of systems working simply against each other. Besides that, there's plenty of space to throw improvements in, like Living Dead, please grant this ability a second chance. Yes, it offers a super long duration if timed correctly, but the dependency to healers on this one really screams against everything the Dark Knight offers. May I recall the skill Soul Survivor? Still, maybe give us a big dot afterwards that needs to be healed off like zombie sickness or something like that. But this certain and fatal demise is really a bummer to use this skill at all. Yeah, it procced and saved my life, but I hope the healer realized it. Another solution would be to make it visible as hell, like a visual corpse explosion or the like, also being visible when animation effects are turned towards the limited scale, like it does on AoE marker effects and such. Oh, and if we dare to ask for cool new things on this skill, maybe let your body implode when this effect procs to deal a certain amount of damage to enemies, which could lead to a much more offensive approach and teaching healers that frequent use of this skill is recommended and appreciated. Or at least let the Dark Knight explode when we die with all the negatives, but at least melding enemies away with a 2k potency explosion to save our living allies from remaining enemies. That would actually be awesome, and of course the walk-in time you would have as a downside would easily make up for the speed boost this would grant. I guess we could spend this further and further, and I honestly have so much ideas to make this ability the coolest oh shit button this game has to offer. But maybe you can throw in your ideas into the comments section and I will try to write an open letter to Yoshi-P to choose from at least one of the mentioned concepts. But all in all, I still love the Dark Knight, and by knowing that these flaws can easily be fixed without much effort and without affecting balancing, I remain hopeful, because there are other traits why I still favor the Dark Knight over the others, and this is simply the style and the sheer amount of OGCDs, turning the whole combat into a chaotic but energetic and satisfying button masher. Yes, the opener may be wild, but so is the Dark Knight's damage, and I really embrace the fact that it is the top DPS right now, fitting into its identity. I mean, Dark Knights in Final Fantasy XI were sacrificing their own HP to deal more damage. So I'm really fine with being that tank with the least amount of raw mitigation, except the fine stuff like TBN or party-wide mitigation tools, as well as the one Abyssal Drain against many enemies, reclaiming tons of HP. Let those other tanks have the upper hand, but we will always have the upper edge, right? So let Square clean up some stuff here and there and embrace the best Dark Knight we might ever get. Except the Heavensward Dark Knight maybe, that was amazing. However, let courage lead you and try it out for yourself. It is really not that bad as some people make it, and if you liked it in Shadowbringers, you will continue to do so in Endwalker. Still big fun in dungeons, very high skill ceiling on the AoE damage timings, and simple yet rewarding single target rotation, with an insane amount of buttons to mash. So become what you must, try it out, and until next time, stay dark, stay edgy, and keep loving Final Fantasy.